Ray.
Rob too, and
No, Rob is on Zoom.
Rob is on Zoom. So Rob is on Zoom and Ray is out.
Excused absence.
Yeah.
All right, item number 1 is adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Linda, thank you, Tony. All in favor? That's unanimous. Great, item number 2, announcements. Do you have any announcements tonight? All right. None? I'm sorry. Rob, announcement? Oh,
Someone needs to mute.
Rick. Did- No, no announcements. Okay, hearing none, we're gonna move on.
Wait,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sonia.
Well, so I was just thinking, probably Rob should announce the candidate forums. And then also, Linda, do you want to address that members can call in via Zoom?
I can do that.
Okay.
We've been having our meetings down here in the multi-purpose room, and in order to do that, we found that now that we don't have staff handling so many things with the board upstairs, that if you want, you can start calling in on Zoom and we'll take member comments only during the 15-minute section that's allotted for members to make comments.
So board meetings are now in the multi-purpose room,
Yes.
and members can call in via Zoom.
Thank you, Linda. Rob, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Hi, good evening, everyone. The only thing I would announce is a couple things. The ballots have been mailed and members should be receiving them soon. The ballot box, if people want to drop their ballots off at the clubhouse, the ballot box is in place and it is right by the glass windows where people used to be able to come and request member services. There will be 2 candidate forums. One will be on October 2nd. And that's going to be from 5 to 6:30 p.m. The next one is going to be on October 19th. And that is going to be from 3 to 4:30. And there will be a meet and greet and these are all going to be in the dance barn. There will be a meet and greet on the 19th, October 19th. And it's just very casual. The candidates will be given an area where members can come and just chat and ask their own questions and get a chance to meet the candidates in that manner. So those are my announcements.
If you don't have the e-blast to refer to, you can just call the front office and we'll tell you how to forward those comments. That number is 360-734-6430.
Thank you. Any additional announcements? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to item number 3, is property owner comments. We have 15 minutes total, 3 minutes per person. Any property owner comments tonight?
See, I always like listening to you.
well, you always. I love.
Well, you don't need to work 15 minutes, I can come in behind you. Okay,
That's why I want you up there now.
I. Well played, I'll say that. Hello, 15 Grandview Lane, Gate 2, Waterman. We have a new opportunity, election is coming, and with this election coming, a new opportunity exists for a new long-range planning committee. Now, as you all know, that committee assembles and submits proposals to the board for their consideration. And we need a functional long-range planning committee. We haven't had one for a while. We need one populated with members who desire to support their community by contributing their energy and their efforts and their ideas. There are options that exist for new revenue streams, which many directors have agreed the association needs new revenue streams. In 2016, the county had given us preliminary support. They wouldn't, I won't say approval, just preliminary support for the association putting 200 self-storage units in Area Z. Okay, and as long as they were for Sudden Valley residents, well, there's 3,500 homes here. Populating or filling out 200 self-storage units would not be an issue. There are members of the community who then, as now, have offered to pay for it if they could lease the property from the association. So a zero-sum gain or a net gain in revenue to the association at zero risk. The association, the county also gave preliminary approval for a megawatt storage area for solar power on our airstrip. Well, judging from how many storage spaces we might be able to use for boats, it is very conceivable, judging from what I see in California, raised platforms with cars and parking underneath them. This is now the common status. So we would have power, electricity, which means we would have security and lighting, and we can put boat storage there and also have a megawatt solar power plant. Many options exist, and that one comes with separate funding from other sources. So if we can put together a very good, intelligent, forward-thinking group of people to work on a long-range planning committee that could put strategies in front of the board for their consideration and come back to the board and say, let's work this, I think that we can move ourselves forward. I think the time is going to be at hand shortly. I would suggest to the board, we have an opportunity at hand that we should take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mitch.
Nancy, how much time did I use?
Your,
Too much.
I left you too much time. Okay.
I mean, I've got something to say. I'm Nancy Allianac, 4 Sandalwood Circus. No, go ahead, Barbara, I'm just letting Mitch know I'm gonna talk to, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Nancy Allianac, 4 Sandalwood Circle. I was really looking forward to returning to board of directors meetings with Zoom capable member participation. I was very disappointed when in-person multi-purpose room A appeared on tonight's agenda with no Zoom link. As of this morning, no Zoom link had appeared on the e-blast or the board of directors page either. So my disappointment is because the motion to move board monthly meetings to the multi-purpose room until a better sound system comes into use and implement Zoom capable member participation passed unanimously at the September 12th board meeting. The general manager was at the meeting, heard the motion, and commented, "We know it's feasible." Well, I knew it was feasible too when I saw the Zoom capable remote equipment used at the September 5th board meeting. That's why the next morning I called admin to ask why we were not using that remote system for property owner comments. And the answer I got was, it is a directive from the GM because it violates our bylaws. So apparently our bylaws have changed, the GM has reconsidered, and perhaps others had the same thought I did. So why did allowing remote owner comments take so long to happen? The board president has long had the authority to direct the general manager to implement Zoom capable member participation and to buy the necessary equipment. The remote system would probably fall within the GM's approval limit. And the president's authority is in board policy 2017.5, which says no director other than the president shall direct the general manager to initiate any action, project, or study without prior approval of the president or prior board direction. So it really is that simple. But it took this long anyway, but thank you for getting it.
Thank you, Nancy.
Spencer, can you tell us where they can find the link?
It should just be on the board of the directors website. It's a little bit small, but there is a button that says like click here to join the meeting. I saw it earlier today. It should still be there.
Yeah, it wasn't there expensive. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Barbara Michelson Harder, 172 Polo Park Drive. So, first of all, so I'm gonna give a little history lesson, but thank you. I want to say thank you all for being on the board because I know it's a lot of work. And I appreciate you wanting to donate your time, because that's what you're doing, you're donating your time. And I appreciate all the people that we're gonna be running, and I appreciate Nancy's gonna be running. My history lesson is maybe we don't quite, I don't know how long everybody's been in Sudden Valley. I don't know how long we've paid attention to what's going on with the board. But I think you've been around a long time, I know. But I think it's important. I mentioned to Keith once that when I moved here in 2019, I came to a general meeting. And what was proposed was projected monthly assessment total that would be, I'm not even sure if it was on top of the HOA dues or in conclude, you know, if it was added to it. But for 2020, it was gonna be $144. For 2021, it was gonna be $204. For 2022, it was gonna be $387. This is per month. So I think it's important to realize where some of the schism has come. Because there's such a wide range of annual income in the valley. You know, it goes from people who are maybe on VA retirement or just Social Security retirement to people who really $387 a month is like, okay, so what? But there are a lot of other people that would really put them in the hole. And I think this is possibly, I don't know, because I wasn't here before that, possibly one of the roots of some of the distrust of where is the board going to take us, especially now, since we don't have voting power. That same year, the people voted for the ceiling on how much you could raise the HOA fees, and there was also a ceiling, a percentage on how much assessment could be. And because we had power, we could look at this and go, yeah, no thanks, we don't want that. So now we don't, because of Wakulla, I guess. You know, you have to have 51% of not just the people who vote, but the people who live here, but everybody who owns a home. So we've lost some of our power, and I think that's one of the roots that makes a lot of people a little wary of where is the board going to take us. And so I look to you as current board members, and some of you are running again. It's really important to reinstill. Okay, can I finish?
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
To reinstill back into the population of Sudden Valley that the board cares about everyone across all the income strata. So thank you. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any additional, no, I guess, one other comment. All right, hearing none, we're gonna move on to item number 4, is consent agenda. 4A is the meeting minutes for August 8th, and 4B would be the meeting minutes for August 22, 2024. Motion for approval.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from August 8th, 2024, and the minutes from August 22nd, 2024, as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Anyone object?
No.
Abstains?
Thank you. Item number 5, financial report, July financials. Statements from Joel. Thank you, Joel, for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll be covering the July 2024 financial statements. I'll just quickly run through this. So I know you have to go in closed session.
There comes in.
Okay, but everyone can see it now, both in here and on Zoom. And obviously, we're gonna start out with the balance sheet, which I always start off with, and really the only two notable changes to the balance sheet is you'll see a new line right here, down here in operating liabilities called deferred library lease revenue, and obviously that's from that library lease that everybody signed with the library, and this is that $40,000 portion of that library lease, which is called other rent. It's on the contract itself. And of course, it's on here as a liability because obviously the other rent is called out in the lease itself as part of all of rent and obviously the time frame of the whole lease covers 5 years. So 1/50 of that every month will be recognized as income. And also down below, you'll see this transfers out from this down in under equity, transfers out from operations capital. Now, it used to say 105,600 because of the marina dock replacement. Now it's up to 145,600. That's the amount that the board also approved to transfer from operations to serve for that amount. And then down below, you'll see transfers into capital from operations. That's also up to 145,600. Now, just going to the next page of the income statement, the consolidated income statement page, which is really just the bottom line of the entire organization. So we'll just skip down to the net income amount right here, 570,375 year to date through July. As opposed to last year at the end of July 2023 was 619,637. So we're within about $50,000 where we were last year at this time, which is great. So last year we also, had some positions that were open like IT and the chief of staff, I believe, that hired later on, possibly Joanne, 2023. But so the bottom line is we're within about 50,000 where we were at the end of July, and at the end of December 2023, we also had a $228,870,000 operating surplus. So, we're on pretty good track to pull an operating surplus again. Now, the collection rate, we're budgeted for a 95% collection rate. You can see we're at 97.5% collection rate for the end of July 2024. I've already calculated collection rate for August 2024 year to date, and so we're at 97.54%. As opposed to last year at the end of August 2023, we're at 97.6%, so we're like right in the ballpark of where we were last year, so collection rate is really good. And I said this before, I'll just quickly say it again, so for, obviously, since we budgeted 95% for every 1%, we're over that, meaning if we're at 96%, then we get an additional 26,688 that'll show up into operating income. Additional 13,520 for SERF, close to 14,000 for roads, and just around $250 for mailboxes.
Joe, are you looking at any pushback on that collection rate at all? You
No.
still think you're right there?
Yeah,
Okay.
so the collection rate is literally, it's pretty close to where it was last year this time. And of course, our collection rate is great for this organization.
Mhm.
Now you'll see here that net income, this is what I just highlighted here is the operations better, worse than budget. We were better than budget by 206,438. Last year, we were marked better than budget by 382,000, but as I said, the operating income is within about 50,000. So really what you're seeing is just more of a fine tuning of that budget spread from month to month for this year. Now, of course, I've shared before the revenue to expense ratio, which is literally just the ratio of, like for example, at the end of July 2024, it's 81.1%. So all that means is for every dollar of revenue, we had little over 81 cents in expenses. That's what that means. And so for July 2023, year prior, it was 77.9%. So we would expect that to drop if the operating income is higher in this case, since it's inverse relationship. June 2024 is 81.5%, so it's fairly close to June. Now going on to the capital reserve funds page, the operating reserve fund page, where you'll see this is like I say, this handy sheet, and we'll go ahead and focus on SERF right here. But what this is showing is the cash, literally the balance sheet cash in the end of December 2023, which was 3,627,018. You see all the additions to it, like dues, cash coming in, investment income, any transfers. There's that marina dock replacement, 105,600. There's the other transfers, which is that money, that 40,000 transferred from the consumer library lease, that other rent category. Then you'll have other expenditures, all the checks going out the door for capital projects, loan payments, so on and so forth. Everything the board approves to go out of SERF. And then the 5-month outlook. This is at 95% collections, so we're projecting $535,173 to come in for the rest of the year. For the last 5 months of the year, that's at 95%. Obviously, we're tracking higher than 95%, so we expect even more than this to come in. Then you see the big things like the SERF loan payments, and this. I probably won't pull it up this time, but this obligated expenses holding is just everything that the board has approved, all the projects that the board has approved, and this. Basically, all the money that is yet to be spent that is budgeted from board approved capital projects. Then you have the board carryover balance, the amount that you would like not to fall below, which is 600,000 per SERF. Then this is what leaves you this is your working cash, that you could expect to work with at the end of the year, 12/31/2024. Basically, at this point, if the board doesn't approve any more projects, and if we don't get any more investment income, and do stay exactly the same, then it'd be 1,718,000. But obviously, we expect it to be more than this, since this is the projections in here are more conservative. Roads, it's the same drill. You'll see that's 1,481,000 opposed to last year. So roads had about 1.67 million after the board recommended carryover balance of $500,000 right here, 500,000. And that's just the amount that the board would not like to drop below, basically, thinking about it like that. SERF, I said 1.7 million right here. Last year it was real close to 3 million, and this is just a function of dues coming in and all the board approved projects, so money going out the door. And obviously during the budget, that capital budgeting, the 10-year capital spreadsheets, all those projects plan into all of this stuff. So you could go right back to that spreadsheet and see what the board has approved, what they expect, the types of projects that would be spent for the rest of 2024 and also 2025 and 2026 and so on. Obviously, mailboxes doesn't change much. The one last item right here that talk about UDR. We're at 224,842 net usable at 12/31/2024. Now, this doesn't take into account that $45,000 for that accounting manager that was previously obligated. So this amount right here, this obligated expense is real close to 99,000. That's also includes that 45,000. But since the board approved that in August, it's going to hang out here until August. This will drop off at that point. That's kind of why I jokingly pushed back in August to approve it as of June at that point, so that I could just take it off, like on the June statements. But since that wasn't the case, it'll sit there in August, that would go. So in a sense, this is $45,000 higher than 200 and essentially 25,000. Now we'll go to the next couple of pages. We're going to skip this page. This is the current. This is just showing you the operating income, which I've said this every month, but this is breaking it down now by department. This is only for the month of July. So we'll just skip ahead to a more useful page, which is year to date, January through July 31, 2020. And you can see there's that $570,375 net income right there that I already pointed to on the income statement. But up above, this is just how each department contributed to that number. And we'll just go ahead and focus on golf right here. Got this highlighted. So you can see actual revenue for golf year to date through July, 115,704. Year to date through July 2023, it was 931,636. So it's about $16,000 less than in July at the end of year to date, July 2023, but it's still really right in the ballpark. And last year was the best year that golf has had historically yet. Anyways, also keep that in mind. The total expenses for golf, which is just this actual salary benefits right here and all other categories, those two added combined for golf total expenses $709,693. Last year at the end of July 2023 is $671,042. So the expenses are up by about $38,211, but obviously we expect that would increase in salary raises according to the union, CBA, and just rising prices, so on and so forth. So bottom line for golf, year to date through July, they have operating income of $206,011 at the end of July 2023 is $260,154. Now for Marina, go ahead and highlight Marina too. Okay, so you can see that Marina revenue through July, 242,960. Revenue at the end of July 2023 is 186,490. So revenue is up by, 56,500. And obviously that's because of the increase in the Marina fee, which is really what's doing that, or feeding into that. Net income for Marina, 232,767 at the end of July 2023 is 178,496. And obviously that's also because of the increase in the Marina fee. One last thing that I'll point out here for the heck of it, since we've talked about that library lease and how I said that we recognize the month at a time, 150th of that 40,000 month at a time. If you're wondering where that will show up on the income statement. Here it is right there. So I put this purposely down to the UDR category. So $666.67 each month will be recognized income. Now, the reason why I'm putting this down in UDR is, in a sense, that's because this is more of a, I hate to say it, but it's accounting mumbo jumbo, so to speak. It's recognized revenue, so this isn't so much helping out operations. This is an additional cash going straight to operations that we can count on, in a sense, for operation cash. So we're recognizing a prepaid revenue that, and so at this point, I'm moving it down to the UDR category. And plus, we also moved 40,000 out of operations anyways in the SERP, when we got that money in. But that's why it's down in UDR. But I would say that pretty much covers the high level aspects of the financial statements. If anyone has any questions about July. Sure.
Linda?
I have a question, so I'm looking at the reserve cash balances and activity sheet, page 3. And if I look at search, I can see that our decrease is like over 1 million. Roads, we only have 53,214. Why is it not higher? We have lots of roads programs and stuff. Is it just that this money hasn't been fully accounted for yet, that we have such a low number of the decrease in the roads account?
Now, which one of those numbers were you?
So way down at the bottom, we have the net year
Oh,
cash increases or decreases. SERF kind of looks in line, but there's just, there's only 53,000 recognized in roads, and I wondered why only the 53,000, because we've got lots of outstanding, roads projects.
yeah, so this, literally this increase decrease is just looking at the prior year. And that's really all it's doing. It's just
Okay.
the net current year cash increase.
Yeah, it's just so often, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, we have lots of really big projects.
Yeah, and plus also, that, like, the timing of like the checks, when it's going to cut like the actual cash going out the door versus like obligated type funds as well.
Gotcha, okay, that explains that. I think that's the only thing I have a question about. So this thing, I have one more. The whole thing with the library, that money that they're giving us, you said that's gonna go into UDR. Is that gonna show up then under UDR in our accounting?
Yes, so like, so on the actual income statement itself, so now I'm going back to that second page that right after the balance sheet. So that's going to be a part of this UDR activity. It's actually going to show up in net other UDR activity in here.
The 40,000?
That'll just be the recognized amount every month. So in this case, it's only $666.
Okay,
Some of this stuff.
all right, I just wanted to see how we're gonna be showing that.
But yeah, so basically you can see why I'm keeping it out of like the operations up above, because that's not really money that we can count on to help out our operating income at that point. Since we got the money in and then just moved it away anyway, since.
That was one of my questions that you already answered.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that, but don't we need to make a motion to actually move something over? Because that thing in the contract says it's, additional rent money. So don't we need to actually make a motion to
well,
move it into
actually,
reserve?
so the board made the motion to move the cash from operations to SERF, 40,000. And that's part of, it's actually a part of,
The transfer is already noted on the statement.
so that's actually like on this page here, is that
What
board
page?
approved, this would be page 3
Okay.
of those financial statements, so it's that 40,000 amount that board approved transfer from operations to SERF.
Right, but we don't need to specify, you're now saying it's going into UDR and not serve, so.
So that's just the, so this is the actual cash, so to speak, that's been moved. Now, the amount that you see in UDR, that's why I kind of jokingly refer to it as the accounting mumbo jumbo part of it. So where it's like that 40,000 that sits on as a liability as basically deferred revenue, that's 1/50 of it being recognized from an accounting standpoint every month. And it's, meaning like, yeah, I could put it up in operations, but then it kind of, it's not like that dollar amount's really like a huge dollar amount, but it's not like that's $666 that we can count on as cash, so to speak. You think about it that way.
But it's in the contract, it is rent or lease payment. Shouldn't we be recognizing it as lease payment and not going into UDR? So like when we collect back dues payments, we throw it into UDR. But this is a negotiated contract and it's an amount additional that's paid in addition to the rent. So when we recognize it, shouldn't it be recognized as lease revenue?
But it's like the line item itself in UDR,
But when we go to budget next year, we're going to look at lease, we should see the full amount of the lease payments recognized in 2024.
Yeah.
I mean, 2025, when we do our 2026 budget. So it is a insignificant amount over each month, but when you look at it over the term of the lease, it's $40,000. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, this one, like in UDR. So the GL is 4439.1, lease income library prepaid recognized. Now in facilities, the GL number is 4439. So I call this one 4439.1. But then if we go back into the facilities, see this is where this one actually.
I mean,
Understands.
let's say
makes
they prepaid the whole entire lease for 5 years.
Yeah.
They paid the 40,000 plus their regular lease payment, they prepaid it for 5 years. You would certainly then recognize the full amount received, recognized
And-
each month as lease payment.
Right. Yeah,
So why separate this lease payment that was just because it's prepaid?
It's supposed to be tenant improvement, that's where
Yes.
it shouldn't have been designated as rent.
Actually, this is
But it was designated as a rent.
actually, it
So,
might be.
I'm not sure what the measure said, and that's why I have a note to self, look at
Let's look
the
at it.
actual measure, because I think.
I mean, if it's
people have to
if
look
it's
at that.
designated as an improvement, then that's one thing, but if it's designated as additional.
It's in the
Because it says something
contract, it's in the
specific.
contract, another rent, and it is, another obligation within the contract is stated as, SVCA will do this improvement.
Yeah, down below the contract, it says, once we get this money, we'll make these improvements to HVAC, but like, maybe it'd be easier to see it like this, the reason why I put it into UDR. Let's just say the entire lease is only $40,000, so we'll forget about anything else, right? $40,000, and they prepaid the whole thing up front because they don't want to deal with monthly billing. Now, at that point, we've got cash in operations, right? So at that point, so in operations, we have this pool of cash, so to speak. It's liabilities, it's deferred revenue, but each month we get to unlock that $666. Now, at that point, I just stick it all into facilities, it's like, that's usable money, so to speak, for operations. But in this case, since we already transferred it all away to SERF, it's like, a couple things I could do is I could account for the income at SERF, which is kind of a little weird, or I could just account for that portion of UDR. It's just basically recognizing, maybe that's a poor choice of words since I'm recognizing the income, but I'm recognizing that it's not usable cash really to operations per se, because the fact that we've already moved it right away to SERF. You can think about it like that. So, or another thing is I could recognize it in certain. But this is just the income portion of it. But the cash itself is already got from operations to SERF.
The reasoning behind making the cash transfer from operations to SERF is because the expense occurred in this calendar year in SERF. So as the cash becomes available it's inappropriate to put it back in operations, as Joel has noted a couple of times now, and UDR was a resolution of a bit of an accounting awkwardness.
Yeah. I contemplated making it show up on SERF, but I can still do that. I could change it to do that, but literally it's just to recognize, let's assume the library lease is 100,000, just to make it easier to see. It's 100,000 and they prepaid the whole thing immediately. And then we decided ourselves, well, let's just move all that money and stick it into SERF to add on to the Welcome Center, whatever, So like in this situation, you see like how I'm kind of hesitating to have that being recognized in operations, because that's not really money that defrays anything that helps us in operations at that point. The money's already been kind of moved away into SERF. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, it's kind of a confusing.
It is, I understand what Lori said about it, almost should have been noted in the contract as a tenant instead of
Yeah.
would have.
Yeah,
But
because
what's done is done.
yeah, it's because I looked at the contract and say, well, what's the wording of this contract? And it's like, well, it talks about rent, it talks about how this is other rent, I believe exactly what they call it, other rent. Then when you go to the second, it talks about rent, it talks about it's the base rent plus other rent, and then the term of the contract is 5 years. And then if you go down to section 4, it talks about once we get other rent, we will agree to make these improvements, to the adult center. Then there's another section, in the contract that talks about how we're responsible for HVAC and cooling and that stuff anyways, and so it's. But this is one of these situations to where it's like, I can already see ahead to where it's like, oh, this one's gonna be confusing, no matter which way I dice this one.
Yeah, so the contract was written by Richard Davis. Who was fully aware of the meaning and import of that $40,000. And his advice was to write it like this, so that we would receive it upfront. And it would not be tied to the cost of the improvement, it would just be a lump sum payment. So, yes, the contract could have been written differently, it was his advice to write it in the way it was written. It was approved and that's the contract, so that's how we're handling it.
I don't think that's the issue. I think it's how it's showing up. Because UDR has a specific definition, right? This doesn't meet the definition of UDR. You're just placing, you need
Well, I
a
know.
place to put that money.
UDR
into-
sometimes, like, for example, like in our vacation liability or the vacation. Let me find the actual line item.
I can't find it. I thought it had to do with bad debt and,
Vacation liability accrual.
Accrued vacation liability. This is kind of a temporary placeholder as well. So it's like when a department, let's just say department, let's say county had $1,000 of vacation expense, liability expense. People earn $1,000 of vacation leave, but they haven't used it yet. So it'll temporarily be parked right here in UDRs, $1,000 vacation liability. Now, when people use it, so let's just say the very next month, everyone in the county, all they did is they used their vacation, that's the only expense, $1,000 vacation expense. Then we swap it out of UDR and then move that expense to the actual county department, but I shouldn't even have brought up that example because that probably.
It's confusing, but the point is that there's precedent for using UDR to handle changes.
I could put it down and serve if that makes
Yeah.
people, I can do that as well, actually, that's a simple thing to do.
I would be concerned of what's Larson Gross gonna come back. Is there?
Oh,
That's the
They're
question.
not gonna care if you want to know why, because when the financial statements are done from the audit financial statement standpoint, all of this becomes.
Right, you're just using it as a placeholder, but when they see it, it's not gonna show that.
When they see it, they don't even care if an expense is UDR, so to speak, or even. Like, for example, I don't even want to get into this because it's really confusing, so I'm not gonna, but I'll skip over this, what I was gonna say, but meaning whether I call it UDR or whatever, it doesn't matter, it's all gonna be pooled into the operating expense or normal operations category on the financial statement.
So I have another question.
Yeah.
So, when we went to renew the CTK lease, CTK informed us that they had not been paying the appropriate amount of rent. But up until they gave us that notification on our financial statements, it was showing that they were paying the full amount of rent. It was saying actual amount paid, $1,200 a month, but they weren't paying that.
Well, the financial statements, like, so what gets put into the GL will be the actual lease income itself. And then the offset to that is a receivable account. So in that situation, the receivable account, if they're not paying as much as they should, then the receivable account will be higher than it should be, so to speak. It wouldn't have been drawn down as it would pay.
But in the library, it wasn't paying
Meaning that
their full
example,
amount
that's
of
true.
rent, right? Library hasn't been paying their full amount either. It
Doesn't-
shows under the library,
It doesn't, I don't think
It
the library
shows-
changes until next year, does it?
but no, it's already been adjusted. But it shows that they were paying under the amount. And up until June, I guess it was June, that's when I got corrected. And so what I'm saying is, so in that 8 month period of time, shouldn't someone have noticed that they weren't paying the full amount, the appropriate amount of rent?
What was the difference in the monthly rent?
$100.
$100, yeah, I mean, so another thing too is like things like that do get noticed, And then it just depends on, and this applies to other line items too, so it depends on how big the difference is. And then so it's like things start to kind of get marked as a watch item, so to speak, and then handled once it kind of gets to a certain point or when it rises to the level of importance. But to your point, yes, there are definitely times throughout the year where I myself, talk to Dave and say, hey, they're not this, and I believe CTK was one, and library, I know was another one, where it's like they're not getting billed exactly as much as they should have, and then there'll be a rebill to catch them up. But yes, that does happen throughout the year.
So that should take place like at the beginning of the year in January. Davy or whoever makes up their invoices should know that this is the, this is the amount that should be charged for rent. And then the utilities are always, that depends upon what they are. But that should be a note for like, especially for the church lease and the library lease, that those amounts are changing.
Yeah,
And then it's just-
and once in a while that can happen when it flips to a new year, and then. You know, like someone's on autopilot, so to speak, and they're sending out the billings, and then that gets noticed and then followed up on. Good, go ahead.
So how does TTK pay their payments? Do they pay monthly?
Yeah.
Do they pay by check?
I believe they pay by check, I would have to ask
And
David.
when they receive, when we
I'm sure they
receive,
do.
who receives the checks?
So the check would come in and be received by the front counter, which would then get processed into the daily batch and go back to Davey and then,
And no, so for several months, nobody noticed that their check was coming in $100 less.
oh, I mean, that can happen, trust me, like, that can happen. But, and I myself have noticed it, like doing financial statements, like, so like when I go through these financial statements.
So have they made up the difference?
Yes.
When they,
Okay,
when they
that's
want
sure,
to
yeah.
lease renewed, they pay.
So they have
$800.
brought their lease.
Oh,
forward.
yeah, I mean, no one gets away with it. They always pay up, but,
I was gonna say, if we as the association submit them a bill for X number of dollars, they've paid that
But
X
that's not
number
what
of
happened. They
dollars.
wrote us a letter. It's in the documentation when they asked to
I
renew their
know, but
lease.
you know what I'm saying, it's not their fault, it's they paid what they were told.
Yeah, that was an error on our part that probably shouldn't have happened.
That is their fault. They are required to pay a certain amount and they signed an agreement that said they would pay a certain amount. And that it would change at a certain time. That is absolutely their responsibility and it's called out that way in the lease.
Yeah, most people you don't send an invoice for your lease. If you have a lease, it's up to,
Yeah,
it's
You
on
know,
the
you
lease
rent
that
it,
you're
you pay it.
responsible for paying it.
yeah.
yeah.
So when
I
they,
think even the library lease, it mentions that. They'll just pay it, so to speak.
Correct.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I didn't know if it was like an auto debit or they actually. would
No,
check
let's
what
see,
they
I
did.
would,
We still have the responsibility though to make sure that they actually do. Cause we ran into this before with the restaurant too, where they weren't paying when they were supposed to. It's an ongoing issue, like
that can happen.
we have issues with people that are renting like, rental spaces and stuff like that. And then they don't pay for months and they, leave their stuff in there.
Just as if a member wasn't paying their dues or was paying
Yeah.
short on their dues, we would notify them that they're short on their dues and if one of our leases payments are coming in short. I would hope that we would have some procedures in place to recognize that and to notify them.
Sure.
So Joel, could you go to the page that shows the marina income for this year, please? You highlight the marina income. And read out that amount.
What, here today, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so the total marine income is, 242,959.
And what is the difference between that income and last year's marina income? I see that you have the 2023 July statement. It will help to answer the question, I believe.
I
Or
don't believe it was a
answer.
question. I was making a
Okay,
point
so-
that last year when I was a
So last
treasurer,
year it was
people didn't pay
186,000.
those fees until towards the end of the year, a lot of them.
So last year was 186,490, year to date through July,
So the difference is,
56,000 percent.
okay, so based on the changes to the fees, we anticipated getting about half of the 105,600. Which would have been 52,800. So as you can see, we've collected more money this year. That's because we undertook an audit, I guess you could say, of all of the contracts. And instead of pre-billing, which had been the practice of the association in the past, we only accepted funding or payment from the marina renewers when all of the paperwork had been turned in and we had resolved their account. so that those additional funds that we collected this year. Some people had not paid for last year and we collected some additional revenue. And then some people, well, we also filled all of the spots in, more of the spots in the dry slips than we did last year. So, by doing that sort of an audit, we were able to catch mistakes that would fall through the much vaster net that accounting uses to manage collections outside of the dues. The accounting system itself is set up to notice non-payment of dues revenue, but the non-payment of other sorts of revenue is much more difficult to track because it's variable within the system. And so by doing periodic audits, we catch those discrepancies. But what you have to know about the system is that it's set up primarily to capture dues, which are the same for all developed lots and all undeveloped lots, right? So these variable payments get caught up at different intervals when staff can focus on a particular account receivable, basically, and correct it. And so it would not be unexpected to see that we didn't audit the rent every single month for the library or for the the CTK lease, but instead we would do that periodically throughout the year and true it up. So that's why I brought up this example.
Thank you.
And it'd be like Marina, that stuff, obviously they have all their accounts too. If anyone falls behind, they get billing statements and late notices, just like dues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on, then move on to item number 6, continuing business, the resubmission of the amended board policies. Linda?
Yeah, this is me. So this is an approval request memo. At the August 22nd, 2024 board meeting, the listed policies were presented for review and approval. 2 of the policies below had suggested revisions suggested by the board. Rather than submit each one separately, they are being submitted for final approval as a set. In the board packet, you will find copies of each of the policies with the recommended amended changes. There were only 2 that actually had any, they're small changes, but they are there, they are in red. And the one is, and then another one is to be rescinded. And the other one that there is just, there was no change to it. And then there was another one for discrimination and harassment. I didn't change anything. If I'm not mistaken, that was done by our attorney. There's one for the board and there's another one that's just for volunteers. We only dealt with this one at this time because they were grouped together under board policies. So I'd like to make a motion to move that the SBTA Board of Directors approve the board policies with recommended changes and rescind the one policy that has been recently updated to reflect changes in the state law.
Second, you go ahead and second it.
No, I've got time. Discussion?
I just have one thing, and it has to do with the one, dang it, I closed it up, policy about, like GM Towers. There's a line in there that talks about that the GM is, sorry, it gives the GM, it's executive and administrative powers. It's the paragraph, the second
In
to
what
last
policy?
paragraph.
What policy?
And the policy is called board member and committee chair involvement and association management. So
Okay,
that paragraph goes, okay, administrative and managerial powers may only be exercised by those persons, right, to whom such are delegated by the board. Okay, but then it goes, the principal delegee of SBCA executive and administrative powers as the general manager. I'm just wondering, if that should actually say executive in there, like, maybe it should just say administrative powers. Should it actually say executive powers? Like,
What are
Exec-
what are we doing with that policy?
Nothing,
It just
she's
says
just-
TBD.
you're just confirming that language, right?
It's just the date that I need for it, because at the time, this has been, we did, the document review committee did this a long time ago. But it was, when are we gonna be able to do it? When are we gonna have a calendar that people can look at it? And it should, you know, if everybody would have agreed, it would have been done on the 22nd, but you need a date for each one of these. And that's why it doesn't have a date.
Right.
So I can't put a date on it till it's approved here.
But you're not, what I think what he's saying is you're not asking for changes on that one, right?
Yeah,
It's
so
just
what-
No,
discussion, right?
no changes other, she brought that up, I
I
just
brought
left
it
it
up.
the way it was.
So why would we need to do anything? Why is that included?
She's asked what she, all I'm saying is some of these need to stay in place. And it's just, this was originally written in 2017. I would just like us to approve the fact that it's still valid for us.
Huh?
You know what I'm saying? It's just, they're so old that if you look at some of them, it's scary what they look like.
So I'm fine with if we move that language about executive power, because executive power rests with the board, primarily board president, but the executive committee. That's a different kind of power than administrative power. That gives you power to sign things and all kinds of stuff. Right now, it requires a vote of the board. This policy then just takes over that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you.
So, the way I read that, and would interpret that term of executive would be in reference perhaps to the contract policy where the general manager has authorization to approve contracts up to $10,000 and to purchase supplies up to $10,000. That seems to me would be an executive sort of decision that this policy authorizes the general manager to execute. Am I reading that wrong?
No, you're correct, and that's what I was gonna point out, is that, the general manager to conduct the daily business requires the ability to bind the association in contracts within the delegated levels of responsibility.
In the policies and.
In governance, that's not how executive power is defined. It's the power of the president and executive committee. That's what executive power is. I mean, I'm like looking at what executive power and governance is defined.
It is talking about daily affairs of the association.
Right, so why not just remove that word?
Because then the general manager wouldn't be able to execute contracts within the
Yeah.
delegated authority.
But we did delegate, the board did delegate that authority and that particular authority is delegated through policy.
Yeah.
So we did do it. So this could get misconstrued into a broader power.
Yeah, I agree. This is a broad delegation of executive power, whereas the contracting policy is a specific delegation of executive power for contracts under a certain dollar amount.
This isn't talking about contracts, though. It's talking about involvement in association management.
Yeah. The
It's
only
different.
thing the general manager would need executive power for is those contracts that are less than $10,000. Which we already have given them authority to sign under the contract policy. So this sentence gives them an open, broad approval of executive power. I think there's other concerning things in the paragraph above. Regarding the president's role.
What is that?
Well, the president can direct the general manager to basically do anything. And the president can allow board members to basically go around the general manager to go to staff. Is kind of the way I read.
No, it just needs.
It says no director other than the president shall direct the general manager to initiate any action, project or study without prior approval of the president or prior board direction. individual directors and committee chairs may not intervene in staff decision-making or in the development of staff recommendations, scheduling of staff work, and execution of SBCA priorities without prior approval of the board president or board as a whole, with notice thereof being promptly provided to the general manager. It's just saying, for a while, before you were on the board, we used to have chairs of committees come into the administrative office and direct staff to do something when they were working on something else and say, I need this, I need that. And this is to stop that. That if you need that so badly, then go talk to the board president.
But
Or-
you're not listening to what I'm
Okay.
saying. I'm saying the board through this paragraph, the board president is given the authority to go around the general manager to allow committee members to intervene with staff day-to-day activities.
It's not how I read
Oh,
it.
with,
No,
I see what
It
you're
does,
saying.
it says without prior approval of the board president or the board as a whole. It should just say the board. In both of those, I don't know that the president's role should be called out in any of this, no director shall direct the general manager to initiate any action, project, or study without prior approval of the board. Individual directors and committee chairs shall not intervene into staff decision making or the development of staff recommendations, scheduling of staff work, and execution of SBCA priorities without prior approval of the board,
So now we're looking
with
at,
notice thereof being promptly provided to the general manager.
Right, under the policy.
so basically what you're saying, AJ, is that no director and what you want out is other than the president removed. No director shall direct. That's what you're saying you want taken out of that.
This policy has essentially given the president the authority of the board.
But that's what I'm saying. If you take out that
They
those-
shouldn't have that.
If you take that out though, then you're fine with the policy the way it is.
And take out the.
And the executive thing.
We call the question?
Well, no, we're
Well,
in
no, because
discussion.
I
You can't end
We're
discussion.
gonna end discussion
Well,
on important
but we haven't
policies.
actually discussed it back and forth. Everybody gets two chances. You saw it last time. We agreed that we were good with it the last time, and now we're going back and forth yet again, and I think that we should call the question.
We didn't go back and forth on
Well,
it.
you're
Talking about this at all.
supposed to have.
AJ or Sonia, can you make a motion
I
that
also,
you want to, whatever you want or need to change then?
well, I also have another suggestion. I don't think our motion that was stated to start this discussion. I think our motion needs to include our policy numbers that we're dealing with and what we're actually doing with them. I don't think when it comes to setting policies, we should do a motion that references like the agenda packet. Well, it's still gonna reference the agenda packet with the written policy, but I think we should like state we're approving policy number, or we're updating policy 205.01 to be this policy now. But, because the policy is not numbered even.
If you look at the request, it has all the policy numbers there.
It just says 2024.
No, I'm saying,
I think he's just saying verbally in the motion, we need to reference which policy.
The document doesn't have the policy on
It's in the budget.
it. No, the new policy number just says 2024.
that's because we don't know when you're gonna approve it. I can't give it. The board, what happens is where this says 2005.1, that means it was the first policy of 2005 that was approved.
I understand.
I know, but that's why I'm saying, and until I have these approved, I can't give them a real number.
I disagree.
Can we make
I'm
a
just
motion
like-
that with the current policy
It's
numbers
pretty easy to number
to
them.
be updated? With the SBCA board of directors approve the board policies with recommended changes and rescind the one policy that has been recently updated to reflect changes of the state law. This references
policy numbers that are currently in place of 2005.01, 2010.08, 2017.03, 2017.05, and 2018.04, numbers to be updated after approval. That covered?
So you amended the motion.
I did.
Yes.
Thank you, Tanya.
And then,
Sonia?
so I'd like to, I guess, amend the motion to, or make a new motion. I don't know how we want to do it then, because this needs to be on this policy, right, that we're talking about. Policy 2017.5. I move that the policy be approved with the following changes. Under policy where it says no director other than the president shall direct the general manager to initiate. Okay, so remove without prior approval of the president. What?
We shouldn't write and edit significant changes to the policy and approve them in the same.
Okay, so we'll say it should bring this one
Like,
back.
yeah, like that. should-
Okay,
In my opinion. Like, I think. It's okay to like strike a word or two, or like there's an edit, but if there's like significant changes, this is. I just
Okay,
think it should be rewritten.
I would like to amend my motion to say that we pull this one and Linda bring it back with the following changes. The following changes being that where it references approval of the president, that's removed every time it's mentioned, you know, where it goes. Or study without prior approval of the president or prior board approval. We remove everything that just references the president individually, because no board director can act individually, even the president. And then also we strike the executive powers. We leave administrative powers and strike.
Executive and actually.
Yeah, executive and then you can bring it back.
Second.
All those in favor?
Which motion there's?
Yeah.
It's just, okay, only the one that Sonia's talking about now, that we're gonna hold back. Policy number 2017.5 until we can bring it forward with corrections or amendments, edits.
Guys, just a point of order. Didn't Timey also have an amendment on the floor? What happened to that?
Your
Or did
motion.
it pull back?
Sonia amended,
It was.
you have to,
Yes,
we have to go backwards now. Once you start amending motions, then you have to work your way back to the original.
And then Tiny's motion. was-
Got it.
So
Thanks, AJ. I guess I need another cup of coffee because I was a little confused. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
And then it would go back to Linda's, although that might, I don't know.
Yeah.
stop, let me try
It
doing
could,
it.
it could be to the point where we should just like start
let's
over.
do the motion.
Like, it might be a good idea to just address these policies one by one, like, I don't know, in my opinion, that's the cleanest way. It's just 5 motions, so it's not a ton. Like,
Just
but
call the
Could we
motion
take
each
a
one.
2-minute break here? I need to use the restroom. I'm sorry, but.
sure,
We're gonna-
okay.
we're gonna do that.
We're gonna take a 2-minute break, Spencer.
don't know.
And the policy can't supersede our bylaws either. Well, policy can't supersede our bylaws.
So we're back live.
Okay, after our short break. I would like to withdraw my original motion. And
I will withdraw mine.
so we are,
Mine as well.
I've got a new one.
so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through these one by one. And it's just, you know, that's where it is, so. I move that the board of directors approve policy number 005.01 contract.
Second.
All those in favor?
Sorry, can I request,
AJ?
can I suggest one quick thing? Under purpose, the next, right after purpose, in bold, the next two words are operations contracts. I think that should just be stricken, because the policies for contracts, capital and operations, and I think that's just a holdover from something maybe, or.
So just say contract.
No, I think it should just be nothing, the purpose, this document provides a policy for contract like that. And
But
then
the-
below it
Yes.
talks about capital, because it's not, the purpose is not operations contracts, it's all contracts, because it talks about capital. Operational
All right.
contracts above and below
Okay.
10. So I think it's just. A friendly amendment to that policy would be to remove operations contracts from purpose.
Okay,
If
then
not
with
just-
AJ's friendly amendment, I would ask that we approve 2005.1 contract policy. For approval.
Second.
Time.
I was voting for it. I was ready.
All in favor?
One down.
That's unanimous.
Next, I would move that the board of directors approve policy numbers 1010.08 board orientation.
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Next, move that the board of directors approve to rescind policy number 1017.03, director of committee chair requests for records and information. Approved to rescind.
Second.
All those in favor?
That was 2017-03, not 1.10.
Oh, 1017, I thought that's.
No, it should be 2017. You said
Okay.
one, just to clarify.
Okay. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Move that the board of directors approve the following policy.
Bring back.
Bring back the following policy 2017.05, board member committee chair involvement in association management. 92nd.
Second.
All those in favor?
So does it need to be amended to say?
We'll bring it back with amendments.
Changes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And last but not least,
Wait, is that voted on?
yes, we voted. You missed it.
Yeah,
Move that the Sun Valley Board of Directors approve policy number 2018.04 discrimination and harassment policy and procedures for volunteers, including members of the board of directors.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. We're done at this point. Thank you, everyone. I will never do nothing with you, John.
Don't look at me.
All right, moving on to item number 7 is new business, the capital request, number 2 golf bridge repair, Joanne.
Thank you. The purpose of this memo is to request capital funds for the repair of the number 2 Golf Bridge. On July 8th, 2024, SVCA received a report summarizing the results from Integrity Structural Engineering's biannual golf course bridge inspection. The report evaluated 4 of the 8 bridges to be in excellent or good condition, while 3 bridges were deemed fair and 1 bridge, number 2, was found to be in poor condition. The report included maintenance recommendations, which were immediately added to the work list maintained by the Turf Care Superintendent Greg Wadden. And just as a side note, many of those repairs have already been undertaken. The repairs recommended for the number 2 bridge included adding steel beams to support the 4 10-inch by 16-inch timber girders whose condition had degraded. This work is beyond the scope of the Turf Care team. So SPCA's capital project manager, Tyler Andrews, was asked to prepare an estimate for the installation of 2 steel beams. SPCA proposes to install 2 new beams as per the drawing supplied by Integrity. These beams and other materials needed for installation will be purchased from Morse Steel Service. Stremler Gravel will complete the work under their on-call contract, and P&W will provide supervision. The table in the memo summarizes costs for a total of $25,459.73. In the Capital Repair and Replacement Reserve Fund, or the SURF Fund budget, the number 2 golf bridge is scheduled for $74,012 worth of repairs in 2033. Spending a much smaller amount now, as well as implementing the recommended maintenance for all of the golf course bridges, is a prudent approach to ensuring that the bridges are maintained in the best possible condition for the smallest outlay. For those reasons, I request that the Board of Directors approve $25,459.73 from SURF for repairs to the number 2 golf bridge.
All right, so the motion is move that the Board of Directors approve $25,459.73 from SURF for repairs to the number 2 golf bridge.
Second,
Yeah.
me.
Any questions, comments? Okay,
I think I have only one question. Is there any necessity for any contracts to be signed by the general manager? Or is Stremler Gravel's work going to be covered under the, what are they?
Yes, the on-call contract.
On-call.
That will be covered, and that's why we call that out. And that's why they're, as part of the backup that P&W supplied, their price list that was provided under the on-call contract, that was included in the backup.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
all in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
I just had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that, and you may not know the answer. I'm just curious, though, we had planned, or there was a plan to do repairs in 9 years. Does this obviate those needs, or?
Fair question.
That's a great question.
That's one part of my question. I got to follow.
Okay, so, the process of developing the capital budget requires each individual manager to first take an inventory of the asset, and second, to assess its condition and evaluate whether the planned time is appropriate for either replacement or repair. So that particular asset is on the list that the Turf Care Superintendent owns and reviews, but his competencies are not bridge design. So next year, having learned from this year's inspection, Tyler Andrews will be asked to weigh in on it based on the results of the inspection. So the results of the inspection are not only a matter of record for the board, but they're also in the records of the Turf Care Superintendent and Tyler and our maintenance and facilities manager. So next year, when we get to the capital budget, they will use that document to more accurately program out when those repairs and would be made and what the expense would be. So that's how our process interacts with the real world to, it's a continuous improvement initiative, essentially.
Right, so I guess what I was trying to also get at was on page 2 of the inspection summary. It listed bridge 2 as in poor condition.
Right.
And it listed bridges 3, 7, and 8 in fair condition.
They'll need to be pulled
And
forward.
there was some minor remediation on a couple of those that I'm hoping maybe move them from fair to better than fair. But I understand that it's a continually, as you said, process of trying to update things as changes.
The recommended maintenance for the other bridges that were in excellent, good and fair condition. Generally, the steps that were recommended would slow or halt increasing degradation.
Yeah.
Of timber members, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's a biennial inspection, so in another 2 years, there'll be a further assessment of those bridges. But in the meantime, I think the ones that are designated as fair, pulling them forward and having someone besides the turf care superintendent look at them is a prudent measure. So that the association can appropriately plan for the outward capital.
All right, so the motion on the table is still to move the board of directors for $25,459.73 from SERF for repair for another 2 golf bridge.
He just
Motion
asked,
by me, seconded by Lynn. What?
we approved it, yeah, that's like.
He asked a question
Oh,
after.
after, it's already approved. Thank you. I digress.
It's really approved.
Well, it was a fair question, so if spending this money now, is that gonna prevent us from spending money in the future? I guess
I think that's, in the case of the number 2 bridge. Yes, but the timber members are still there.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they,
you're going from timber members to steel members, so I would think that, barring any flooding event and additional scour or failure of like the abutments themselves. You would extend the life of that bridge with steel girders over timber. If you look at the other ones, the fair condition mostly has to do with like. Piles of wet dirt being on concrete where it shouldn't be, and like blackberry bushes.
it's great.
There is one thing in there about adding scour protection and large woody debris as one of the fairs, and is that part of our Austin Creek repairs that we put on hold?
I think this was a separate recommendation from that.
So I thought we
don't think that's the right
developed
bridge.
those Austin Creek repairs partly off of. Stuff that eroded from the 2021 flood, and then these bridge inspections that were done.
Well, I'll make a note of that for sure, but the report, as I said, not only is a matter of record at the board level, but it's also. On the radar of the managers and so like I said, all of the recommended items for maintenance were added to the work list, and they've already gone through a fair number of them. We'll get through all of them over the next few months. And then next year, that will become part of the evaluation process for the capital budget.
Thank you, Tom. All right, moving on now to closed session. So we're gonna move into closed session at 8:25 p.m. Make a motion, give a second. 8:25.
Was that a motion? I'll second it.
All right. Perfect.
All those in favor?
All right.
This is-
Yeah.
We're just staying there.
Oh, no, it smells really.
I'll just talk to them, see if anybody else wants any. AJ, you don't want What if I said there, if anybody wants any? Pass this out, see if anybody wants any. I swear it's not poison, you saw me eat it.
That's if you want any,
If you're
if
hungry.
anybody's leaving,
Oh.
if Joel or Joanne wants some or.
Does anybody want any, awesome, what kind of bread is it?
Spice, applesauce, a little bit.
It's really good when you buy it.
On bread.
So there's your whiteboard.
I got it.
Oh, right
Right
there.
there. Do we have a marker or are we just?
Yeah, they're there.
Did you guys turn the microphone off?
Yes.
Did you guys turn the microphone off?
I did for a minute. We're gonna have to for, so it's not broadcast though.
Yeah, we're in closed sessions, so you're gonna have to.
Were we still in open session?
I can't hear you. Oh. Hi, Timmy.
Hey, I thought maybe I'd let you come in.
Okay, thank you.